Welcome to the Voice of Retail. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc. This podcast is brought to you in conjunction with Retail Council of Canada. Start with great ideas and let 1,000 flowers bloom. When e-commerce veteran Charlie Cole accepted the position of CEO at FTD, 3 of the most recognized letters in the world, he saw assets and a heritage prime for transformation and growth.
I think over Mother's Day last year, and this isn't the most flattering thing to admit, but I think over Mother's Day from last year, I received probably 20 inbound LinkedIns from people being like, hey, you screwed up my order. And I responded to every single one of them. You know, for me, I'm in this thing for like 45 days. And I'm like, good Lord, is this what my reality looks like these days? But if you take the time to sort of siphon through all of this, you will distill thematic parts of your business that can be improved.
He also started the job in March 2020, D-Day for the start of the COVID era. Just off the CommerceNext virtual stage, Charlie shares his insights with 2 starts and 1 stop, advice for retailers to help us make it through and thrive. Let's listen in. Charlie, welcome to the Voice of Retail podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. We in the flower industry, this is sort of a crazy time, and I suppose around right now I feel about as good as I could feel. So yeah, no complaints on this side.
Yeah, it is a hectic time, right? Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, those big events really drive up a tremendous amount of volume, and it's really that supply chain, right? It's how to get a lot of product out the door at the same amount of time. Well, listen, thanks for joining me on this special CommerceNext snapshot episode. Why don't we start off by telling us about yourself and what you do?
So my name is Charlie Cole. I'm the CEO of FTD. For those that are not familiar, FTD has been around for around 110 years. We're a collective of florists and as other gift sources that are kind of powered by 2 marketplaces. We own FTD.com and ProFlowers.com. I have been the CEO here since March. And before that, various e-commerce roles spanning true entrepreneurship, other private equity operational roles, and then also kind of big public companies. So I like to think, Michael, that I've run the gamut to a certain extent.
Yeah, you did. I was looking at your background. You lots of experience in the space of e-commerce and all those great things, but less experience in this particular vertical. So that must be an interesting ride for you, getting to know the growth, so to speak, behind a whole new category of business. Yeah,
it's been my single favorite part. Is the appreciation of this industry. You really have to start with the appreciation of the local florist. And I think one of my big regrets, Michael, is that because of just the sheer timing of everything, I started on March 23rd, which was pretty much when the world fell apart around us because of COVID. Yeah. I haven't been able to visit 1,000 florists in person, which is probably what I would have done. But instead, I started collecting with a lot of them virtually. And when you get to kind of know the individual florists, you get to kind of know the industry, both the positives and negatives of it, kind of the role that the internet has played in their reinforcement, but also the role of where the internet kind of became carnivorous to a certain extent as well. So learning the industry has been by far my favorite part of it. And I think that for us, that sort of kind of non-tainted view that I had just as a newcomer to the space has actually been a huge strength because, you don't come in with any preconceived biases.
Well, clearly they were looking for someone, as you said, who came in with a clean slate. No, as you said, no biases, and just kind of take a look at the business. Now, it's funny when you said you described what FTD was. I can think of 3 letters more recognizable than FTD. Give us a sense. We know you're a kind of a flower company. Where do you operate? Give us a bit of a sense of the scope of the business, and then we'll kind of get to our questions about the 2 starts and 1 stop. Just so everybody knows FTD, but I'm not sure if you know what I mean. Everybody knows FTD. Yeah.
So, and I would also say that FTD has changed over the years for a variety of business machinations. So, as of today, we operate predominantly in North America with smaller operations in Latin America, and then it gets to be a little complex via joint ventures and business structures, but we do have operations via partnerships worldwide. But for the purpose of this conversation, I'd say North America is the fair representation without getting overly complex. And if you want to think about FTD, it's purest form. We have these 2 marketplaces, FTD.com and ProFlowers.com, that generate orders of various things, whether it's flowers or chocolates or teddy bears, whatever it may be. And then behind those marketplaces is a network of 8,800 local florists, as well as farmers across the United States and in Latin America, that allow us to fulfill things in virtually any zip code in the United States. And so our revenues this year are well over $500 million. And we are kind of continuing to figure out where we can differentiate our offerings by reinvesting in these local businesses. Because if you think about it, Michael, local is sort of this beautiful virtuous circle. One, it's the best way for me to get something to you in 4 hours. Yep. It's if we have fulfillment at these 8,800 points of distribution, that makes for a huge tactical advantage. But underneath that, there's a whole lot of layers. I think, especially with COVID, there has never been a time in history that reinvesting in your own community is more important. And so we're proud of that. And then also on a far more kind of tactical side, it's also by far the most sustainable way. If you have flowers next door to your house versus having somebody pack flowers in a box in Miami and ship them to them, there's some advantages there as well. So that kind of sums FTD up in some form or fashion.
Tell me a little bit, just last question, about the difference between the FTD and the Pro Flowers. What's the difference between the FTD, the consumer-facing? Tell me just a bit about Pro Flowers.
So historically, Pro Flowers was founded as what's called in the industry as a flowers in a box. So much like what you see, as opposed to florist fulfilled, it was more or less warehouse fulfilled. We've evolved the brand quite a bit in just the last year that I've been there, where they are both starting to offer various different SKUs, but ultimately are a hybrid of both florist and dropship. I would tell you, Michael, the differences between the two web interfaces today versus what they will be in 6 months is a very different answer, because we think there's an opportunity for both the brands in the space, and we plan on rebranding both of them in the near future as part of kind of the evolution of the company.
All right, great. Well, we'll look forward, and maybe I'll get you back on the podcast. We can talk about that, how you executed that.
I know vision. I'm biased, but wait till you see them. They are freaking good. So I'm pretty excited about it.
Oh, fantastic. All right. So the format of this is the kind of 2 starts and 1 stop. And the 2 starts idea was advice, counsel, something maybe even you're doing in your own business, though you're fairly new in this particular business. But in general, based on what your experiences have been in the COVID era and before, but things that you would advise people to start doing that perhaps they're considering or hadn't considered. What would those be?
Find a mentor, number one. And I know that might be a little bit meta, and so I'll do something micro for my second start. But I think that mentorship is something that is almost, cliche. Like, of course we have mentors, of course. But no, I think you need to be extremely intentional about it, regardless if you are entry level in your career or in the C-suite. Having mentors has been probably the most transformative thing in my entire career. And if you are intentional at looking for them and actually kind of going out and seeking that level of mentorship, that doesn't mean you have to grab somebody by the shoulders and say, hey, you're my mentor, but it does mean you need to be intentional about your goals. And so I think that level of intention around finding mentorship is the first thing I would say you should start today, because it's going to be a bit of a game of guess and check, if you remember that mathematical method from elementary school. But it's something that I think can have exponential value to your career. So that'd be my first one.
Well, let me do a quick follow-up on that. It's almost like 3-dimensional games, because now in this COVID era, and this won't last, thanks to the miracle of the vaccine, this won't last forever. We can see the end of time. But, the work from home movement and all these things, when they come together, it's pretty hard to find a mentor or get mentored via Zoom, right? I mean, there has to be some kind of in-person contact. What are your thoughts around that? And I guess in the short term, but also, work life may change a little bit post-COVID.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think that's fair that you would prefer. I'd much rather meet with my mentors over a meal than I would over Zoom. That's certainly true. Yeah. But I actually think that if you're in prospecting mode, let's call it, that it might be a bit advantageous, this current reality we live in, because it allows you to kind of meet lots of people in a passive and virtual format. And what I would recommend, based on our modern day reality, which you referenced, Michael, is start with friends of friends. Right? Because don't go blindly onto LinkedIn and start cold calling people and being like, hey, I want to be your mentee. That's just weird. But you know lots of folks in your life. And even if it's friends of friends of friends, that kind of reach out, I think, is actually enabled by our current reality. Mm-hmm. You have a subset of people that are spending more time in front of their email, more time in front of their Slack, more time in front of their Zoom, for better or worse. Right. But you can take advantage of that by using that just level of exposure in a way that's more beneficial. So from a prospecting perspective, I think you actually are in a good position to find the right mentor. And to your point, Michael, you can then get the efficacy behind that mentorship in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, when hopefully the world's back to some semblance of pre-COVID.
We'll be right back. The COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated the need for businesses to undergo a digital transformation. Through the Toronto's Regional Board of Trade's Recovery Activation Program, otherwise known as RAP, You can now immerse yourself in online sessions, workshops, and one-on-one mentorships with industry experts to learn how your businesses can get ahead through digital solutions. Whether your business is having difficulty connecting with customers or struggling to manage increasing demand, Wrap offers practical support and advice at no cost, helping your business build back stronger and smarter. Wondering how you can get started? Well, your business is a Wrap journey begins with digital needs assessment, or a DNA. The DNA takes less than 30 minutes to complete and offers an assessment of your business's current digital maturity, benchmarked against companies of similar size from related sectors from around the country. Based on your results, Wrap's team of industry experts will contact you to discuss which programs will be most useful in helping you take the next step in your digital transformation. From helping you build your personalized digital transformation blueprint to tailored and outcome-driven modules based on cybersecurity and digital marketing tools, there's a Wrap program to support you and your business. In under a year, Wrap will have analyzed more than 1,000 Ontario businesses, hosted more than 4,000 virtual event attendees, and maintained 100% overall participation satisfaction. Remember, there's no cost to participate. So to ensure your business is ready to capitalize on those exciting opportunities for digital growth, take your digital needs assessment today at wrap.bot.com. That's wrap.bot.com.
Second one. So I'm going to go, since that one was a little bit macro, I'm going to go a little bit micro. Spend time with your customers. Now, again, this one sounds like a slap up the head, but yeah. I mean, actually spend time with your customers. So for FTD specifically, customer means a couple of different things. Customer means florist, and customer means people buying flowers, and customer means people receiving flowers. When I say spend time with them, I mean that both in a passive and explicit way. So get on the phone and take customer service calls. So in my first 45 days at FTD, every single person at the company worked a customer service shift during Mother's Day. You have never interacted with someone more upset than when mom did not get flowers.
Oh, I can imagine.
It just teaches you so much. And in our case, for me, it crystallized this emotional whirlwind that our consumers are going through, because flowers and gift giving is to celebrate the best moments in life and mourn the most tragic. And so I think spending time with your end consumer is important. But I also reference this as well, Michael. Spending time with florists has taught me more about our business than anything else. Because, and what would the equation for you be for your business? Does that mean your factory workers? Does that mean your supply chain? Does that mean your delivery drivers? I just think that we all need to get out of our ivory towers a little bit and spend time with the most basic, most important part of every single business, and that's your customers. And it's just very important that you figure out the definition of customers, because if I had to guess, there's probably more than one.
I love that whole idea. I was with the shopping channel in Canada, which is kind of like an HSN QVC, or it's exactly like that, but separate. And once a week, all of the executives, including myself, would spend an hour on the phones, and it was a gift, really. You know, it was a gift from the customers, and you'd hear good calls and not so good calls, and you'd hear customers baffled by your marketing. I was the head of marketing, and you're like, oh, they really didn't totally at all understand what I was trying to do. And it's just a gift, right? It's just a gift.
Well, and it's also a chance for you to win lifelong customers, right? So for me, not only the selfish part is the way I learned, the other selfish part is it's good for business. So I think over Mother's Day last year, and this isn't the most flattering thing to admit, but I think over Mother's Day from last year, I received probably 20 inbound LinkedIns from people being like, hey, you screwed up my order. And I responded to every single one of them. You know, for me, I'm in this thing for like 45 days. And I'm like, good Lord, is this what my reality looks like these days? But if you take the time to sort of siphon through all of this, and you will distill thematic parts of your business that can be improved, right? And I think there's certain things that can't be improved. So, for example, you and I were kind of chit-chatting before our call, talking about weather, right? If there's a huge storm in the Northeast and you're missing deliveries, look, understand it, but don't beat yourself up too bad. But if you're missing deliveries when it's 50 and sunny, you probably have a problem. And so I think, you know, taking this feedback from customers in the most explicit way possible and then running with it and trying to figure out whether you truly have systemic issues that could be improved, it's probably one of the most beneficial things you can do with, you know, 2 to 4 hours of your week.
Yeah, that's a great insight. Use it strategically, not just opportunistically, right? Very, very, very good. Okay, so those are two great start things. If anyone's not doing those two things, let's talk about what they should stop doing based on your experience.
I'm going to say, and this is going to be kind of referencing my CommerceNext session a little bit, albeit with a little bit more detail. You should stop quoting data out of context. I think that being in e-commerce, I have heard some of the stupidest conversations that I can possibly imagine. And they go something like this, Michael. Well, what's your conversion rate? If I could wipe that question off the face of the map, I would do so tomorrow. I remember being in a meeting right after Samsonite bought Tumi. So I was at Tumi and it was acquired by Samsonite, and Samsonite was a suite of brands. And I was listening to someone present. And they said, well, and I'm going to make up the numbers just for the purposes of anonymity. Samsonite's conversion rate is 2, and Tumi's conversion rate is 1.95. Therefore, Samsonite has a better website. And I looked around the room, and nobody said anything. And I stopped, and I remember asking the room, I was like, so does everybody here believe that a Ford dealership and a Ferrari dealership has the same conversion rate? And so I think that now is the time that your business needs to be thoughtful about what metrics truly we should be looking at. And so I was in we have a daily meeting around Valentine's Day. And one of the reports that we now look at is conversion rate by marketing source, by landing page, by device. So think about what I just said, right? Yeah. Marketing source, not good enough. Landing page, not good enough. Device, not good enough. Because if our conversion rate is down year over year, but we're doing a prospecting campaign on a mobile device on YouTube, of course it's going to be down. Of course,
mobile organically has got a lower conversion rate than desktop until you get payment devices. But yeah, it's a great point, right?
And yet here we are, and how many people present on a blended conversion rate, which in itself is literally a worthless metric. And so I think that overall people need to stop using macro data points in e-commerce. And I think this is something that has been unfortunately perpetuated by our industry, but it's also a bit of a compliment. I think we're all smart enough now in this industry to understand that these things should never be done without context, and we need to contextualize our data points. So I would say for all of your internal culture, stop doing it. Make sure. And so to put it another way, take a complete clean slate approach, or what are the metrics you should be looking at? Because chances are, if you're using the same ones from 5 years ago, they're just wrong. And I think it's a huge opportunity that we've seen. And you referenced one of the things, mobile payments has changed this equation. Marketing sources has changed this equation. Attribution models has changed this equation. So I think it's time for all of us to take a look at our key metrics and stop quoting metrics out of context.
All right. Well, right on. Well, final question is what I was going to ask you what you were going to present on the stage, but we're talking just after the CommerceNext virtual show. What did you talk about? What did you present on the virtual stage?
I talked about building a data-driven culture, and I think that the title of the session itself it kind of actually articulates a bit of the problem, because building a data-driven culture is a little bit of a misleading goal, right? Because data in itself is worthless, right? Data by definition is this raw group of numbers that hasn't been put into an actionable analytic analysis or machine-based learning process, whatever it may be. And so I really tried to approach the problem, Michael, from a perspective of what do you need to do internally so that you're using data in the most strategic way possible. And so I do my best on sessions like this to make it a mix of kind of tactical and cultural, knowing that every single person that watches this won't be able to affect the highest levels of their organization. So I'm kind of excited. It's an area that I'm particularly passionate about. And I think that people tend to get a little bit caught up in the wrong goals. But it's really about how folks should be repurposing the concept of data analytics and data science across the organization.
All right. Well, fantastic. And really what it now does, our conversation serves to illustrate the caliber of the speaker on the stage at CommerceNext. So, Charlie, thanks so much for taking time to speak with the Voice of Retail podcast. Real treat to chat with you and get to know you a bit. And I wish you much continued success and a successful Valentine's Day for all you and all your customers.
Thanks, Michael. I really appreciate it. And happy Valentine's Day to everybody out there listening.
Today's podcast is the final of the CommerceNext Marketing Summit Series episodes that featured some of the fantastic speakers that took the virtual stage January 20th, 27th, February 3rd with a snapshot insights into how they dealt with online e-commerce in the first year of the COVID era and lessons learned for the future. You can learn more about upcoming CommerceNext events at CommerceNext.com, and stay tuned for more great content here in 2021. And thanks for tuning in to today's episode of The Voice of Retail. Be sure and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out on the latest episodes, industry news, and insights. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a rating and review, as it really helps us grow so that we can continue to get amazing guests onto the show. I'm your host, Michael LeBlanc, president of LeBlanc Company Inc., and if you're looking for more content or want to chat, follow me on LinkedIn or visit my website at meleblanc.co. Until next time, stay safe and have a great week.